Hi everyone, welcome to another video presentation. This time I'm going to jump into duplication. Duplication is a real problem in genealogy today, and a poll that I done a few years ago showed it up as number 2 on the list. I'm going to look at how you can resolve duplication and how you can keep those family links intact. Future videos are going to be more feature specific and shorter, not like the marathon one on media. But the media options in Family Historian are just so many, and it just deserves to be in one video. I'll continue to give that quick 30-second update on what's happening in the genealogy world. I read a lot of forums, I read a lot of questions, I know what users are asking for, and it's very quick for me to train that out. So if you want to subscribe, go down below the video, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications of future videos. The Rootsmagic User Group on Facebook continues to grow, and it's got like about 24,000 members. Now remember, this is not a supporters club, this is 24,000 people asking for help. However, the two people on screen, Tom Holton and Jerry Bryan, these are the two guys you want to look for answers. They've been around Rootsmagic for a long time, they know the program inside out, and they give honest opinion. Unfortunately, Rootsmagic are still deleting negative user comments. The YouTube channel Family History Fanatics continues to promote mainly Rootsmagic, some Family Tree Maker, but never Family Historian, and they don't declare a vested interest in those programs, apart from personal preference. So don't be misled into thinking they're giving you fully impartial advice. That's not true. The last thing I want to give a shout out to is the Family Historian New User Group. This is a Zoom group that meets weekly at 19:30 Greenwich Mean Time, so it fits US time and also sometimes in Australia. The membership is growing and there's some great discussions on there. I've learnt a lot from it myself, although I'm far from expert on Family Historian at this point. So if you want to join up, shoot an email off to Derek, his email is above here, get your name in the list and sit in on a few meetings. So let's jump into the recording and see what we can learn. So I have come across a new family line. The name is McKissick with 4 main spelling variations. So what I did was I grabbed everything I could from the General Registry Office website. Here we are on birth records, and you can see the distinctive mother's maiden name. That's going to become very useful when I come to merge. Also the GRO reference, which will go into my source, and the registration district. On death records, we have similar information, except we also have the age at death. So I can calculate the approximate birth year from that, and that also will be imported into my GEDCOM file. I just copy all of these, paste them into Excel, and use a VBA script to write this out as a GEDCOM. If you want to learn more about how to do that from Excel, then go back, look over my earlier recordings, and you'll find an introduction to VBA. On marriage records, we have the principal party, and we also have the surname of the other party. So again, I can form that family relationship, and I can write that out as a single surname. And again, that's going to become useful when we come to merge families. This is typically the screen in Rootsmagic 7 that I use to identify possible duplicates. Now, there's one slight problem, and it hasn't been overcome. I think there may be a slight way around it in Rootsmagic 8, but essentially nothing here has changed. I have created a family group, and on People View I am sorting by that family group. But what I can't do, I can sort by the name, but I can't sort by different spellings. I'll show you Family Historian very soon. The other thing that's very important is to turn on these record numbers. And in Rootsmagic 7 you go to Tools, File Options, and on the right hand side here, Number to display after name, and you click Record Number, which is RIN. Click OK, and now you can see these show up on screen. So let me go back to my McKissick family here. One of the things I'm just saying, I can't sort these irrespective of the surname spelling. Also notice I have this on screen, last edited, and look at the dates. If I sort this, today is the 27th, I'll probably finish this during the weekend, and the last edit date here is the 25th. If I jump into Family Historian, I've tried to set the view in Rootsmagic 7 the same, but there's a lot of fields that are not available. I'll explain those. So this is all of the McKissicks, just by typing in MCKIS. This is all of them. I don't want all of them, But before I move on, let me just show over here, relationship. This, I can have that on this screen, and it's also dynamic. If I add a new individual here, this relationship gets updated, providing they're related to me, of course. But I don't want to work with this large set. There's a lot of data here. You can see it populating out. The other thing that you can see, you have details of the parents of any individual. So I can see this is the child of Robert McKissick and Ellen Melville. I've populated the mother's maiden name into this custom fact delete me, and it's exactly the same in Rootsmagic. So that's the sort of thing I'm going to work through, and I'm going to be using Family Historian to identify those duplicate individuals in the first place. But I don't want to work with a large group like this here, so what I want to do, let's start with George. So now I just have the Georges, and I can see here I have a marriage 1897, and on this George I have a marriage 1897. This one I have approximated a birth date of around 1868, and on this one I have approximated a birth date of before 1879, and that's really going 18-20 years before the marriage. I can see here that this George, I know that his father was also George, and I also see above here that I have a great uncle who was the child of George McKissick and Annie Keenan. Again, if I look over here, I can see the spouse surname is Keenan. These are all clues. Let me go through the things I can't display in Rootsmagic that I find very helpful, and one of the main reasons that I jumped ship from Rootsmagic. So first of all, these are full dates, but Family Historian gives me the option to put them in or display them in an abbreviated format. And that means I have more space on screen and I don't have long-winded 16th of September, 19, whatever. So I have more space on screen without truncating the information. So I can display those as year only if I wish. I've done the same for marriage here. Marriage place is place short, and those cannot be displayed in Rootsmagic. Here I can have the spouse. I have her given name. I have spouse surname. Those cannot be displayed in Rootsmagic. The relationship here, which as I say is dynamic, if I make an alteration here, it's going to update right away. And I'm the root person in this file. That can't be displayed in Rootsmagic. Family is child, so the parents of each individual, again, that cannot be displayed in Rootsmagic. Let me move across. The delete me, I've already explained, that does show that's a custom fact in Rootsmagic, and also here. Father's occupation. This isn't the occupation of the principal, this is the occupation of their father. These give me good clues as regards whether or not they are possible matches. Again, that's something that cannot be displayed in Rootsmagic. I've made a note of these two record numbers, and I'm going to demonstrate this merge over in Rootsmagic. There's a few pitfalls when you're merging in Rootsmagic, and I think that's one of the main reasons people end up with these blank spouses that they can't delete because they're not a real record, and they also end up with duplicate parents, etc, etc. And I'm going to call those out as I go through the process. The other thing is I'm going to count the mouse clicks. A lot of people dismiss the amount of mouse clicking that goes on in Rootsmagic, especially the new version, but the more I click, the less I get done. So here I am in Rootsmagic, and first of all, let me collapse this, and that gives me a little bit more on screen. Now remember, this is the occupation of Thomas James, not the occupation of Thomas James's father. I've reset the counter, so I'm going to select this as being on. I'm not going to count the speed of operations because that's not fair. It just depends on how quick and familiar the operator is. I'm purely going to count the clicks. So I'm going to do Control F, Alt R, and the first record number that I have is 57667. And that's one of the Georges. Now I do need to select that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to manual merge and then select duplicate person, record, and it's 58758. And then select. Now I have those two people side by side, and I can see the spouse here, Annie Keenan, Keenan on this side. and I see the birth is different. There's a lot more detail. I always keep the lower record number on the left hand side, so I'm merging this one into this one. So that's all okay. I'm happy with that. The marriage date is the same. I'm not doing any clicking here. We're still only on 10 clicks. So I'm going to click merge duplicate into primary. Now in Rootsmagic, the one thing you don't do here is click close. You must go into the edit person screen, or you're going to, if you don't clean up now, you're going to end up with problems later. So edit person. And I notice it's the 27th of January today. I'll probably publish this through the weekend. But look at the last edit date down here, 22nd of January. So I've just merged two people together, which in my book is quite a big edit. And we still have the last edited date 5 days ago. So let's look at the data. We can see here that we have two spouses, one Keenan and one Annie Keenan. We have a birth, two births. This one is more precise than this one. So there's some stuff here we're going to have to deal with. So I'm going to delete this birth first of all. That's okay. I'm going to look down through it to see if there's anything else. The alt name at the bottom I'm going to leave because it's a spelling variation of the principal name. So that's my two Georges merged now. If you look at the bottom, eagle-eyed viewers will have seen that the last edit date has now updated to the 27th of January 2023. That's important if you want to find a list here of the people that you worked on most recently and maybe review them and go through. If you hadn't done that, this George would have been way down the list here somewhere, and you would have been difficult for you to find again. So I'm going to close now. This is all. I'm happy with this, and I'm going to close. So here's my George. So I'm going to look at him in family view, and the first thing you'll notice is he has two spouses here. If I click on that, we've got the Annie, and we've got this one. I'm going to remember this number, 58759. I'm going to right click on Annie, manual merge, click here, 58759. There's the other Keenan. And now we've got these two side by side. And the marriage date is the same. The spouse is the same. I'm going to merge. Again, I'm going to go to the edit person screen. You can see Annie's last edit date down here, 5th of January 2023. Even though I've forced two Annies together, which again I have to say is quite a big edit, Rootsmagic does not update that date. So again, birth, I'm going to delete this. Let's have a look. We have two marriages. This one has the church, this one does not, so I'm going to delete that marriage. I'm going to look down and see if there's anything else. Research notes, a blank research note, I'm going to delete that. Alt name of just Keenan, I'm going to delete that. So that's Annie cleaned up. There's nothing else duplicated here that I can see. Her parents are Robert and Agnes. Spouse, she has one spouse, George. That's it. Those two people have been merged. So we had 21 keystrokes and 43 left button clicks and 2 right button clicks. So we're going to just count that as 45 button clicks, 21 keystrokes. Let's flick over to Family History and perform the same operation. And I haven't started the mouse counter yet because I want to demonstrate it obviously. But I'm very happy from the information I can see on screen here that these two people are the same. What you can't see is that over to my right hand monitor, I have another screen here, which is all of the details of George McKissick. And I can relate to that. And I've turned I can also turn the text size on that up independent of the program. Let's go for very large. I tend to stick to just large on that side monitor. It's slightly further away and it makes it easier for me to read. Let me get that off screen again. And this is probably quite tiny for people, so I'm going to increase the text size here. So at the moment I usually use 85%. This may be 100 actually. So preferences, display, yeah, it's on 100. I'll turn it up to 120 and apply. So I'm very happy that these two Georges are the same. If I'm not, I can right arrow here and open up each individual. I can see all of the data that I have for this George and all of the data I have for this George, and I can do that on multiple people. Just open them up and left arrow will close them down again. So I'm going to reset the counters because now I'm going to merge those two people. We've got George here, and I'm going to just highlight the two of them. I'm going to go edit, merge compare records, presents me with this screen. Now my two Georges are already on the right hand side here. I can add more candidates if I wish, but I'm going to click OK, and then I get this screen. I can see that Family Historian has already rejected the exact same name, so we're not going to get another name. I think Rootsmagic will do the same for male. But if I look down here, so birth, I have a good birth here. Here I have a birth which is less exact. We've seen that in Rootsmagic. I highlight that and discard. Spouse family, I have Keenan, and I have spouse family Annie Keenan. Again, I'm going to highlight that and discard. Is there any other facts there that I need to be concerned about? The unique ID is not a concern. There's nothing on this side that needs discarded. And what I do is I click merge, I get a warning, and I click OK. That is that operation completed. Let me look at the mouse counter. Left button 10, right button 0, keystrokes 1. How simple can it get? So I've noted that down. I'll make that comparison at the end. So George here, let me do this. I have names. I have Kissack and Kissick. That's the alternate name, and that's what we wanted. George McKissick, alternate name. We've got the McKee mother name. Down here we've got the parents, William McKissick and Lucinda McKee. Spouse, Annie Keenan. I've got two unique IDs. I'm not terribly concerned about that. Let me bring in my properties window here from the side monitor. Here's all my facts, etc., etc. He was born. I can see I have two sources here. This one has media attached to the citation. Let me just check on the media. So I see birth registration twice. I'm guessing I know the answer to that. Let me take these two checkboxes off. So yes, this one is obviously attached to a fact, and this one is attached to a citation. Something I need to tidy up, and something that's come in from Rootsmagic, because the initial JEDCOM was imported into Rootsmagic. I wanted to jump back to George there, because what I didn't show you in Family Historian, this is the main window. He only has one spouse here. Name's Annie. That's only a truncation. And here's the name, Annie Keenan. She was born there. If I wanted to add another spouse, I just click the plus button. But unlike Rootsmagic, the spouse didn't get duplicated. It was dropped on the merge operation, which is the correct way to do it. And Heritage, I know Heritage 2021 also allows you to drop items on the merge operation. So you select which items that you want to keep, and then you perform the merge. Now, it's sad for me to say, but I suggested this to Rootsmagic back in 2014. So that's almost 9 years ago, and nothing has happened. Let me move this out of the way again. I will do a comparison with the click count in Rootsmagic 8. It's going to take me a while. I don't use the program because I've demonstrated previously that it's much slower to use and much slower in operation. Also, most operations require many more clicks, so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out, but I will publish that at the end, and maybe we'll be surprised. When I came out of that demonstration, I could hear people screaming, what about when there's children involved? So what I've done, here's my main screen, and I've added a column for children. I just called it kids. Again, you can't do this in Rootsmagic. I can sort on this if I wish. So the McKissick family with the greatest number of children is William, John and Ellen, shown at the top here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to filter for Thomas. I'm going to do spouse, just sort on spouse surname. So here we have a Thomas who has 6 children. Spouse surname is couples. And here we have a less precise, just couples, 0 children. The marriage date is the same, 1892. The birth years are slightly different. The names are slightly different. So I'm going to merge these two. So edit, merge, compare. Okay. And here I want to drop this. So I'm going to discard that. I'm going to discard this approximated birth year. And I'm going to discard just the couples as the, and this time I'm going to drop the unique ID on that as well. So here's Thomas. Don't forget this is the one with the 6 children. Okay, I'm just going to merge those. Get the warning. Proceed. Here's Thomas with the 6 children. And let me just find and bring in my property box. And here he is. If I turn on timeline facts here, I'll see the death of his brother Joseph. There's Margaret, didn't last too long. She died in infancy. And I can go down through and this is just this button here, timeline on or off. If I just want his individual facts, there we are. If I want to see the timeline, I just click that on. If I go to the main and the spouse, we've only got Ellen couples, 1 spouse, 6 children, family complete, no more editing. Well, so much for shorter videos, but that's the thing with Family Historian. You find a great way of doing something and then you learn from other users there's 3 other ways to do it, and sometimes one of them's better. My poll entry back in 2019 read, utilities to help find, merge and delete facts, sources and media. The merge compare records can be used on almost any sort of data in Family Historian: places, sources, media, people, etc. And with the same utility allowing you to choose what to retain and what to discard. Here we can see 2 completely different sources being compared for merge. But what about facts? And missing the edit step in Rootsmagic will result in duplicate facts, so how long have you been doing that without knowing the risks and problems? My file is clear of duplicate facts now, so I restored one of my last backups from Rootsmagic dated 6th of January 2020. A very significant date, and the date I severed my relationship with Rootsmagic due to ethical differences. Family Historian is further supported by plugins, which can be downloaded by anyone from the plugin store. A bit like Tom Holden's SQL scripts, written SQL, but available to a wider audience of those without technical experience. Here is the one for searching out duplicate facts. I run it, tick all the facts I want to check, and get a list of all duplicate facts in my database. I double click any item and simply delete the duplicate fact. Job done. So now you can see why my database is free from duplicate facts. There's also some very powerful plugins, but I need to leave that for another video. Well, my ghast is flabbered, and for the first time I have found an operation in Rootsmagic 8 which requires less mouse clicks than the previous version, albeit only 6 clicks. That being said, Rootsmagic 8 still requires 4 times as many mouse clicks as Family Historian and 18 additional keystrokes, so a massive 39 clicks and 19 keystrokes to perform a merge and clean up of one couple, avoiding duplication. My next planned video is an introduction to the basics of queries and how to build them. They really are quite simple once you grasp it. All you're doing is asking your database some questions. In Family Historian you can save them to use them over and over again, unlike the frustration expressed by this Rootsmagic user on their forum. I'm going to build a query from scratch showing how to identify those missing burial photographs. This comes up almost every year, coming close to Memorial Day. If you got something from the video, a thumbs up would be appreciated and encouraging, and if you want to get notifications of future videos, then click the subscribe button down below, followed by the bell. In the meantime, don't forget to check out these previous videos, and if you're thinking about migrating to Family Historian, or maybe you're going to plan on using the free trial, then why not go over to the Zoom Users Group and spend a few sessions there just watching and listening and seeing what other users do. Apart from that, I hope 2023 proves to be a productive year for your research, and thanks again for watching.